Good evening. Welcome to Northbeat. I'm Megan Roberts. People are coming together in Fort Smith tonight to mourn the lives that were lost in a plane crash yesterday. There's a candlelight vigil this hour in the community as people start to process what happened. 6 people died when the plane went down just outside of the community. Only 1 person survived. The CBC's Natalie Pressman is in Fort Smith tonight. She joins us now live. Natalie, what more do we know about the crash?
Well, Megan, like you said, there are the NWT's chief coroner reported this morning that 4 passengers and 2 crew members have died. There is 1 survivor, and according to a report from the Transportation Safety Board of Canada, that person has serious injuries, and the territory has confirmed that they're being treated at Stanton Hospital in Yellowknife. That same report from TSB describes that when the plane crashed, it collided with terrain, and that caused a fire that destroyed the aircraft. We still haven't confirmed details about what caused the crash. We have reached out to Northwestern Air Lease, and they said they're not ready to do interviews at this point, but that they will be releasing a statement in the coming days. So definitely more information to come. And of course, they're dealing with the loss of 2 of their colleagues in that plane. Late this afternoon on Facebook, it asked for time so that people could grieve the loss of their treasured coworkers, in their words. The passengers on that flight were headed to Rio Tinto's Diavik Diamond Mine. That company says that it will be working with the authorities in the coming days, weeks, and months. It says that it wants to understand the full facts of what's happened. Rio Tinto's chief executive says that he's on his way to the Northwest Territories to offer his support. And the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority says that a mass casualty protocol is still in place at the Fort Smith Health Center. So, regular appointments may be canceled, but it is still open for emergency services. Megan.
Okay, Natalie, thank you. That's the CBC's Natalie Pressman live in Fort Smith tonight. And we have also just learned the identity of the person who survived this crash. This is Kurt McDonald. His father is Thabatcha MLA Jay McDonald, who confirmed that his son is in serious condition and is the sole survivor of the crash, and Jay McDonald sent us this photo. Jay tells us his son Kurt is an electrician at Diavik who's been working there since 2015. He has a 5-month-old son with his fiancée Dominique, and they also have a 4-year-old dog who is lovingly spoiled. Jay says Kurt has a great sense of humor, a big heart, and would do anything for his family. Again, Kurt McDonald is the survivor of this plane crash. His father, Thabatcha MLA Jay McDonald, confirmed this to us tonight. Figuring out exactly what happened and why will take time and involve multiple territorial and federal agencies. The NWT's coroner's service will play a role in that process. Here's the territory's chief coroner on what happens next.
Initially, the RCMP will secure the scene to prevent the loss of evidence. The coroner service will come in and begin recovery of the bodies. And then at some point, the Transportation Safety Board of Canada will send some investigators, and then all 3 of us will work together to collect what evidence that we can, plus the coroners will collect the bodies, and we work together to ensure that we have answers to why this crash happened and to satisfy the family and then the public as to what's happened in this incident. The overall, the length of time for this particular case is going to take longer because we have to wait for the Transportation Safety Board to issue their final report before we can finalize any of this. Our role would be finished probably within a year, and then we just have to wait for the final report.
The sudden impact of such a huge loss has people in Fort Smith coming together and helping out. Some are offering comfort, like coffee and muffins, and others a shoulder to lean on. Carla Ulrich has been visiting with people today. She joins us now live from Fort Smith. Carla, how are people doing there tonight?
Well, it's the day after the crash and the magnitude of the tragedy is now setting in. The loss of 6 people is really hitting everyone in every corner. It's a small, close-knit town, so everybody knows everyone. And you can really feel the devastation here today. People are visibly sad. They're hugging each other now when they see each other. The usual upbeat trip to the store is now very quiet and very subdued. And the topic of most people's conversation when you walk by, it's the crash, and residents are still grappling with the tragedy. I spoke with the Deputy Mayor, Diana Corral, today. The town is inviting people to come to the rec center, to visit with each other, to sit in the senior center and just support each other. And so I visited her there this morning, and she was getting ready to open the doors there.
We're in shock. We're still processing. The emotions are raw. Everybody knows everybody in Fort Smith, and we all have connections, some more than others. Many families are grieving from other issues that have occurred, and it's just really hard right now for the community.
The community is also preparing for out-of-town family members to be coming into Fort Smith and arrive here. People are asking for cots and foam mattresses, so living accommodations can be set up in residents' homes. Some residents are also cooking food for people that are going to be coming in. Everybody is really just doing whatever they can. Darlene Sibiston co-owns Auntie's Corner Store, and she's been through a similar tragedy herself. So when she had heard about this, she knew she wanted to do something, and she's been offering support through free coffee and an ear if needed.
It was important for me to just be able to offer, just for somebody to come in, and if they wanted to talk or just sit there in quiet, enjoy a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, hot chocolate, whatever, just to offer that community support, because it's so important to have that support for whoever wants to come in.
And Megan, as you mentioned earlier, there is a vigil happening at the St. Joseph's Cathedral at 7 p.m. Community leaders will be speaking at the event, but they're also inviting everyone to come in and come attend and just support each other and help join in with the grieving process and try to make it a little bit easier for everyone.
Okay, thank you so much, Carla. That's the CBC's Carla Ulrich live in Fort Smith tonight. As is often the case in the North, when one community faces tragedy, others offer their support. The Hay River Youth Center is opening its doors to anyone affected by the plane crash. The center's executive director tells us more.
We're, only a 3-hour drive away from Fort Smith, so again, in the north, that's kind of like the next community over. So the ties between Fort Smith and Hay River are very, very strong. So yeah, I run the youth center here, and so we're open 7 days a week primarily for youth, but we also like to use this space as a community hub and a place for the community to gather. And so we've offered for folks in the community, if they are needing of a space to come and gather, to be with their loved ones who are dealing with this news coming out of Fort Smith, then this is a place that is open and available to them. We do have free coffee and tea. They can come and sit by the fire. They can curl up in a blanket, and we have those amenities that are available to people that visit our center. There's computers, there's Wi-Fi. If for instance, elders need to use some technology to be able to reach out to loved ones, then that's available to them as well. We really feel very close in Hay River to Fort Smith, and I would like the people who are affected by this and the whole community of Fort Smith to know that we're holding them close, we're holding them tight, and we're here for them.
The city of Yellowknife is also offering its condolences. Mayor Rebecca Alty says the city is mourning alongside Fort Smith, and the flags at the NWT Legislative Assembly are at half-mast right now. Speaker Shane Thompson calls the crash devastating and says it will have a lasting impact on people across the NWT. The town of Fort Smith says the wellness open house that you saw in Carla's piece at the Community and Recreation Centre will be open again tomorrow for people in town. It's available for people who are grieving or who just don't want to be alone right now. That opens at 10 a.m. tomorrow in Fort Smith at the Community and Recreation Centre. If you need help during this time, there are several resources for you. If you're from Fort Smith, the Northwest Territories Health and Social Services Authority says you should call the Community Counseling Program first. After hours, you can reach out to the Fort Smith Emergency Department to talk to an on-call counselor. You can also call the NWT helpline at 811. And finally, you can go to the NTHSSA website for a full list of resources. That, of course, applies to anyone in the NWT. All of those numbers and the website are on your screen right now. Nunavut's Privacy Commissioner is launching a formal review of the government of Nunavut. Graham Steele will be looking into the GN's practices in delivering sensitive mail through Canada Post. The move comes amid criticism and concern in the wake of Iqaluit's new mail system. Nick Murray has the details.
In a letter sent to the GN yesterday, Graham Steele said he'll be looking into 4 specific types of mail: payroll, income assistance, employee discipline, and healthcare cards. Steele said he'll also be looking into what the GN is doing to mitigate instances of mail being lost or misdirected. In October, Canada Post switched from P.O. boxes to civic addresses for mail delivery, but the changes didn't mean mail is actually being delivered to people's homes. Iqaluit are now picking up mail from a P.O. box that's been assigned to their addresses in the city. The changes have led to numerous reports of lost mail and packages. Now, Steele wrote to the GN last month expressing concerns over the changes to Iqaluit's mail delivery system. The GN replied to him last week saying although they've seen an uptake of reports of mail being lost or misdirected, they haven't received any formal reports of privacy breaches. Steele said that he hopes to have his review wrapped up by April in time for his appearance before the Legislative Assembly's Standing Committee. Nick Murray, CBC News, Iqaluit.
Snow is now falling daily in Whitehorse, and it's piling up, making it difficult for people with accessibility issues to get around. The city says its shovels are out, but advocates say they're not digging deep enough. Rafsan Farouk Jugal has that story.
So here we are at a bus stop here. Not an effort made to clear that bus stop.
Ramesh Ferris has been pressing the city council for change, but still, he says the city remains largely the same, not made for those with mobility issues.
Like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, this is a city bus stop where we live in a winter city, and yeah, we all have to work together. But at the end of the day, the city needs to do their job and ensure that public transportation is accessible for all. And when you look at this bus stop and the lack of regard regarding snow and ice removal, if you're in a wheelchair, you're a senior using a walker, or you're like myself on crutches, you cannot use this.
Ferris says in recent months, awareness for the problem has grown, and he acknowledges city staff for trying their best. But there's much more work to be done. Earlier this week, city staff said snow clearing is well underway, that workers are redoubling efforts.
We've also made a concerted effort in terms of clearing the windrows, hand shoveling the windrows in front of the pararamps, along 2nd Avenue, 4th Avenue, Front and Main Street, as well as pulling in contractors to pull the roads in the downtown or central business district core and begin work on the alleyways.
The city staff says in recent weeks, particular attention has been paid to the downtown core. They are also looking to hire casual workers for help. It's unclear when those workers will be hired. Rafsan Farouk Jugal, CBC News, Whitehorse.
A new report on the NWT's 2021 flooding season makes 22 recommendations for emergency management. The government of the Northwest Territories released its 2021 Flood After Action Review Report yesterday. It was done by an external consultant. Recommendations include making sure emergency management organizations have better plans to quickly add staff during an emergency, developing standardized guidelines for evacuation centers, and creating a way to share information online in real time. Vince McKay is the NWT Minister of Municipal and Community Affairs. He says the territorial government will apply the report's recommendations to the coming flood season.
Well, there's always something to learn from these reviews. We're like any other agency. We've learned that we need to be a little bit more prepared with our communities, work with our communities. The communities need to be a little bit more prepared. Regional centers need to be a little bit more prepared, and I think without saying, we also need to be a little bit more prepared also. And I think that's just one of our growing pains with the likelihood of our emergencies that we're having. But at the end of the day, I think little things like training, communication with agencies, being prepared, tabletop exercises, those all help being a little bit more prepared and getting ready for anything, if you will. In any review that I've seen in my time and in my experience of background, communication is always an issue. And I think it's important to get the communication out there on avenues that the local area is used to. And by me saying that, I tend to hear, being from a community outside of Yellowknife, I always hear about, how things are communicated in Yellowknife. Well, that may not work in a smaller community. And I think that's important to bring forward to us being as part of the communication, what resources we have out there for communication, whether it be, CBC North or Facebook or whatever, right? So I think we definitely, like anything, we have lots of work to do in communication. I think it's important to recognize that.
This report was actually completed last June, but it was only released yesterday. The GNWT says that's because of other emergency situations last spring and summer. An Iqaluit woman is disappointed that she needs to go south for a medical service that's no longer offered in the territory. Adeline Salamoni tried to get a vaccination at Iqaluit Public Health's travel clinic before an upcoming trip overseas. Travel clinics typically offer vaccinations and medications needed for travel to certain countries. Salamoni says she was told Iqaluit stopped offering those services as of January 1st.
I was told that I would have to contact a clinic down south and let them know where I'm going and what vaccinations I would need for that country.
Nunavut's health department did not agree to an interview and did not respond to questions from CBC before airtime.
Why, hello. It's me, Seth Rogen. 10 potters will be facing off in the most extraordinary ceramics competition show that this country has ever seen.
I'm Jen Robertson, and I'll be your host.
So are these potters ready?
This exploded.
To test their skills at the wheel and push themselves every week?
Oh, no.
So the ones that do stand out, they really do stand out.
And who will be named champion?
I'm excited to see it. Oh, wow.
Of the Great Canadian Pottery Throwdown.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A ration scheme here
shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job?
Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
It appears we have a mystery to solve.
You'll be next.
He's dead. A murderer was murdered.
Toronto Constabulary, stop!
Here we go.
Make it mini!
I'm gonna push it, let's go.
My hands are shaking.
This is all very overwhelming.
Don't expect anything normal.
I can't believe it. I'm here.
A pair of unhappy Air Canada passengers has won their small claims case against the airline. The Nova Scotia couple's connecting flight from Toronto to New York was cancelled in July 2022. Air Canada claimed it was beyond the company's control due to the COVID pandemic. Angela McIver tells us what happened next.
Vicky Lynn and Terry Black are getting most of what they fought for, $1,583. Their flight to New York City 2 summers ago landed 7 hours late, shaving an entire afternoon and evening off their 3-day sightseeing trip.
I'm really happy with the decision, and I'm also happy that we
decided to pursue it.
You know, we felt it was the right thing to do.
When delays are within the control of an airline and not related to a safety issue, passengers are entitled to $700 for a 6 to 9 hour delay. Air Canada instead offered the black couple a $300 e-coupon. They declined.
The air passenger rights regulations clearly state that we're entitled to cash, that we're entitled to $700, and that there's no expiration. So the e-coupons had an expiration on them. All this spoke to us that they were just not willing to comply with the regulations.
The airline blamed the delay on crew constraints due to the COVID-19 pandemic, but Nova Scotia's small claims court adjudicator decided that 2 years into the pandemic, crew staffing was within the airline's control, and noted the airline didn't present any evidence to support its case. The adjudicator also ruled against Air Canada's attempts to stay the proceeding while other cases play out across the country. The Blacks say the process with Air Canada was intimidating, but that only pushed them forward.
It just felt like, really, for $1,400, they already spent that on lawyers in the first couple of hours of legal service. So that annoyed me.
Air passenger rights advocate Gabor Lukács applauded the Blacks for not agreeing to a settlement or non-disclosure agreement.
This is money which is owed to the passenger under the law, and airlines should not be allowed to cover up their wrongdoing with just paying off some victims.
In an email to CBC, Air Canada says it's reviewing the decision. Angela McIver, CBC News, Halifax.
Warmer temperatures this winter have limited outdoor skating in parts of the country, and that's raising concerns about the safety of open ice. In Halifax, officials have not been testing lakes and ponds to determine if the ice is thick enough to safely support skaters. Kayla Hounsell tells us what's behind the decision.
Hitting the ice on a pond or lake. It is a national pastime steeped in nostalgia. But now the tradition itself might be on thin ice.
Now we rarely get an extended period on the lake. It's later than it used to be, and the duration of the time where it's safe to skate is shorter.
So Halifax has decided to stop testing the ice thickness to see whether it's safe for skating. Chocolate Lake used to be packed with skaters. Normally McLeod has lived here for 26 years.
We've been able to see climate change right out our back door.
Across the country, there have been warnings about thin ice. In Ottawa, 2 teens drowned. Now, in Halifax, this regional councillor says the decision to stop checking for safety is a practical one.
For the last several years, we've averaged 1 day of available skating. Last year there was none. So the program has really just become irrelevant because basically the ice is never safe to skate on anymore.
7 centimeters or less, you should not be out there at all. And that's a good chunk of our winter now.
CBC meteorologist Ryan Snodden says there are just not enough consecutive days below freezing.
It's 3 days here, 4 days here at the most, and that's usually only 1 or 2 times in the entire winter.
McLeod has the records to prove it.
Basically, I started keeping records 25 years ago, and the owner before me kept records before that. So I have 33 years.
Back then, the lake was often frozen in December.
Last year it was February 5th.
Oh, this one's February 11th.
And this one's February 4th.
Her husband checks the ice himself, so they'll continue skating on the rare occasion it's thick enough.
I do feel sad that there will be kids growing up who won't really know what it's like to just pop on the skates and head to the lake.
A sign climate change isn't just causing dramatic weather events, but also affecting everyday life. Kayla Hounsell, CBC News, Halifax.
Animal shelters across the country are struggling with a growing number of abandoned puppies. The underground breeding business took off during the pandemic, but now interest in pet adoptions has dropped sharply. Aaron Collins visited a shelter in Calgary to see how it's coping.
Like feeding fish? It's called a puppy party. Dozens of pups to play with, all looking for homes.
I didn't think that I wanted to completely adopt when I got here, but I fell in love with her, so we'll see.
Are you going to leave with this dog today?
Maybe. It's a possibility.
This many puppies in this shelter unheard of just a few years ago.
Having a puppy in shelter was very rare, and if you did have one, people were clamoring at the door to come and adopt that animal.
The number of puppies here up 200% from last year, a trend reported by shelters across the country since the height of the pandemic.
People wanted to get an animal into their home, and so people started breeding to fill that demand. That demand doesn't exist anymore, so we would really love the breeders who are doing this to stop.
Rising costs and a shortage of rental housing makes owning a dog harder too.
Buying all of the stuff that we need for her today if we do get her, and then also in like 4 months from now we're trying to decide where we want to live too.
One potential adopter on the fence, but nearby, a match.
I have Dystria.
This family getting a bit bigger today.
Look, they're so cute. They're so tiny. Like, they need a home, people to love them. Yeah.
But this adoption is just a drop in the bucket for a growing problem. Of the 30 puppies available on this day, only 8 found a new home. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Calgary.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. For news anytime, go to cbc.ca/north. We leave you with a look at the weather. Thank you for watching. I'm Megan Roberts. Have a good night.
Breaking news. The critics are talking.
Oh, this is it.
Imagine the Wonder Years if it were written by Gene Shepard.
They twisted it all up.
Well, you can't trust a newsman. Highly recommended.
Onwards. Onwards.
Heartwarming.
This doesn't mean I'm better than anyone here tonight. It just says it.
100% fresh.
Well, I suppose we don't need to get rid of the cable right this second.
Son of a critch.
You look like a cod gasping for air.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
It goes on like this, and on and on and on and on.
It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
Name something you see people do on TV that you secretly could do better.
Host.
I knew that was hard.
Family Feud Canada. Watch free on CBC Gen.
We want you to know that you can ask us anything. Need help with your Riz?
You just made Riz uncool. There is something that's been bothering me. Are mutual funds or ETFs better for my long-term goals?
Load weapon!
Welcome to the show!
Fire! Big, 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 big!
I'm from the Liberal Party, and
Every week,
speak the issues that matter to Canadians.
These are acts of desperation.
Connecting politics to people.
Some people have lost everything.
Join me for Rosemary Barton Live.
What do we know about that with Andrew Chang?
I think we can explain.
Watch free on CBC Gem.